Hello, welcome into the show ahead of a big weekend. Potential title deciders in Germany and in Spain. Not to mention what happened in England just today. Shaka Hislop with me, Adrian Healy, Alejandro Moreno, Craig Burley on board. Raf Honigstein will be joining us. Steve Nicol not here. He's at home biting his fingernails down to a knob. But he was smiles in the end because Liverpool got what they needed. 3-1 win against Southampton to leapfrog back above Manchester City. 2 points the margin, albeit with a game extra play. Top off the league. Of course, Mo Salah. No surprise for who is grabbing all the headlines. Super Salah. Mo Salah breaking his own 9-game scoring drought. Craig?
Well, Steve, let's get it right. Stevie was at home talking to a television.
Yes,
shouting. Talking very loudly to that.
For 80 minutes, shouting at a television because it was, I think, a bit frustrating for long periods.
Yep.
But ultimately, you've got to give credit to Liverpool because it's a pressure cooker situation now. There's 2 teams going for the title. It is extremely tight, as we know. And the pressure's on. And was it a great performance for long periods? No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. In fact, it was downright sloppy, particularly in the first half. But substitutions made a difference. Mo Salah didn't have a great game again, no matter what anybody says, but scored a great goal. And by the way, had to score a goal because he had sort of, Firmino made the run and he biffed him off.
Yeah.
So it was either in the back of the net or it was more criticism.
And is it fair to say the game changed with the introduction of Henderson and Milner in the second half, Ali?
It did in terms of how clean or cleaner they were on the ball as compared to Wijnaldum and Keita. Now, what I would say about Mohamed Salah in particular is we've all sort of assumed that he too is feeling the pressure because he hasn't scored in who knows how many games, right? But when I see a guy that runs for 70 yards, sees Firmino wide open, and then says, you know what, I don't think so. This is my opportunity, and takes it as well as he did, then you have to imagine that pressure, what pressure?
Yeah.
Clearly, he's a guy that was very comfortable or is very comfortable with the way he's been playing. Goals haven't come as easy as they once did. But in this particular occasion, as important a goal as you can have for Liverpool, given the current circumstances, they need every goal from Mohamed Salah because, in the end, this is going to be really, really tight.
He even said after the game in the interview, didn't he? I had no intention of passing the ball whatsoever.
I appreciate the honesty.
I was only going to shoot.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I necessarily believe that. And in all honesty, I thought the Southampton defender, I can't remember exactly who it was, played it well. Because Mo Salah, player not in confidence, 2v1, you cut off the pass. Mo Salah, though, given that opportunity, took his goal wonderfully well. Yeah. No signs of any drought or lack of confidence, you have to say. But from a Southampton perspective, this all came from their corner, which I thought they made a little bit of a mess of in trying to carve out an opportunity. Then all of a sudden, they break and find themselves very thin at the back. And as frustrating and as frustrated Liverpool were, I thought Southampton were very good value in frustrating them, in being compact both ends of the pitch. A little bit of tweaking for them. They can be a better team, but as for right now, I'm not sure what the positives you take, given how close you are to the bottom 3.
Well, Liverpool, you know, I know we're talking about the first goal and there was an offside in it, but they should have had a penalty as well. When Keita went down in the second half, so they could feel a little bit aggrieved. If Southampton feel aggrieved on the other end, Liverpool can feel aggrieved at not getting the penalty. I've said all along, the biggest challenge for City and Liverpool are playing the teams at the bottom of the leagues. If they're not playing one of the top 6, is because these guys are fighting for their survival. And I think that's what we saw from Southampton this evening, is we saw them fighting for survival and Liverpool not quite at the best, but just getting the job done in the end.
Let's bring in Raf Honigstein to the discussion. First of all, Raf, Craig brought up the goal that might have been ruled out by VAR and wasn't. What was your take on that?
Well, the way the IFAB protocol for VAR is phrased, they're talking about the attacking phase that leads to the goal. So I think VAR in this case would have said these are 2 or 3 phases that precede the moment when he actually scores. So the fact that Salah was offside 1 or 2 attacking phases before will probably not be subject to review. So it's not 100% clear. We don't know what would have happened in practice, but I think the way it's phrased would have been very, very unlikely to be chalked off.
It was interesting, wasn't it? Because the TV coverage we were watching, the replay started with, it was clearly not the same phase of play, was it?
No, it was too far back, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
It was
about three crosses behind that. And so
right.
you can make the argument that then Southampton would have had an opportunity to clear the ball multiple times. They did not, and eventually they end up scoring off of it. I don't think that VAR would have gotten involved in this whatsoever.
Which will mean the naysayers will have them banging their head on a wall saying, well, what's the point of VAR?
Yeah, well.
But then that's the problem is in how far. You've got to have a cut-off somewhere. Otherwise, you're just going to take it back and take it back and take it back. And so, you know, it's not perfect. It's not going to be
it's still a judgment there.
It's not going to be a perfect science, but I think it would not go back that far to chop that off.
Big picture, what does this result and this performance tell us about Liverpool's title credentials? Again, they found a way in nerve-shredding fashion to get over the line, like they did against Spurs, like they did against Fulham.
Listen, even though they're second, they have a game in hand, and yes, I know the old cliche, you prefer the points than the games. I still think Manchester City in pole position.
Really?
Liverpool will continue to chase very hard between now and the end of the season. It all comes down to what kind of form Mo Salah is in to see out this season, whether Liverpool will continue to be at their best and push Manchester City all the way. City have the harder run-in, but Liverpool cannot afford passengers. Maybe this is a changing of Mo Salah's tide, which would suggest at least a decent run-in.
At some point, I think if you're Liverpool, you have to have a match that is not full of nerves. That you actually impose yourself on the team and you create the chances and you take advantage of those opportunities, and it makes it more of a professional performance rather than this sort of chasing things down and hoping that somebody comes up with a moment of magic. And I know that as we get closer to the end of the season, the nerves are going to get stronger and stronger. So it just feels that one of these times the breaks are not going to go their way. And when that happens, that's when they drop points, and Manchester City on the other side seems to have more going for them in terms of players getting healthier, a full squad available, and simply a more talented team. So if Manchester City plays to their very best, I don't think it matters what Liverpool does. So Liverpool are the ones that have to keep up, and in keeping up, you have to avoid some of this nervous moment at some point during the closeout of this season.
I think if City jump the next three fences in the race, I think it's theirs. You know, at Palace,
Well, one of those is United, isn't it?
Home to Tottenham, away to United.
Yeah.
If they can jump those three hurdles, I think they're going to. I think they'll do it, because their next three games are pretty easy, and it's in their hands. So the next three games for City are huge.
Yeah, Raf, what's your feeling of where this is going? I mean, winning narrow games when you don't perform well is supposed to be the mark of champions, isn't it?
Yes, but then those champions are not up against the best team in Premier League history. That is the problem. As much as we like to think that this is a story, that this is a narrative evolving here, it still might ultimately not be enough. And that is the frustrating thing, I think. The Liverpool can go on and win all their games and still come short and wonder what they could have done better. So I agree with Chuck. I think City still have a slight advantage. But the fact that Liverpool are still in it with, 6 games to go, you really have credit to this Liverpool team. I didn't think they were ready to push City quite as much this season.
Well, it's certainly beginning to look like it's going to go all the way down to the wire. Just that Friday night game at St Mary's, just the start of a full weekend in England that stretches through to Monday. Of course, the FA Cup semi-finals also part of the weekend. City against Brighton, Watford against Wolves, and then Chelsea in action Monday against the Hammers.